The Emperor was supposed to live forever. His body kept us safe. His light showed us the way. But now the Golden Throne is breaking, and when his heart finally stops, the whole galaxy won't explode into flames. It will just go silent. And that silence will be worse than any scream. I remember the sound. Not a sound you hear with your ears. No, this was something deeper. It was the kind of noise that lived in your chest, that hummed through the bones of your skull when you stood too close to the throne. A rhythm. A heartbeat. The Emperor's heartbeat. I had heard it every day for 11 years. And then, one morning, it skipped. My name doesn't matter anymore. It was stripped from me the moment I was assigned to the inner sanctum of the Imperial Palace. They replaced it with a number, Adept 77 Kappa, and told me that I should be honored. Honored to maintain the machines that kept the master of mankind alive. Honored to scrub coolant from panels that radiated holy light. Honored to die here forgotten, in the belly of the greatest lie ever told. Because that's what the Golden Throne is. A lie wrapped in gold, a machine pretending to be a miracle. I learned that on my first day. The air inside the throne room is not air, it's something else, thick, electric, tasting of copper and incense and something burnt that never quite fades. The walls are not stone. They are layered metal, carved with prayers in languages older than memory, each word glowing faintly as if the machine itself is reading them aloud. The ceiling is so high you cannot see it, only shadow, only the faint flicker of lumen, globes that have burned for 10,000 years and never dimmed, and at the center of it all, the throne. It is massive. A cathedral made into a chair, tubes as wide as hab blocks coil around it like the roots of some ancient tree, each one pulsing with a sickly amber glow. Cables thick as a man's torso snake across the floor, crackling with voltages that would vaporize you if you stepped on the wrong one. Steam hisses from vents that have no purpose, I was ever taught. Fluids I cannot name drip from reservoirs that should have been empty millennia ago. And seated atop it all, encased in gold and agony, him, the Emperor. I have never seen his face. None of us have. He is too far above us, too shrouded in light and machinery. But I have seen his hand, just once. It was grey, skeletal, wrapped in tubing and wire. The fingers did not move, but his heart did. That rhythm, that impossible, relentless rhythm. It was the only proof we had that he still lived. The Golden Throne does not need much maintenance. That is what they tell the pilgrims, the priests, the lords who come to kneel and weep and beg for salvation. They are told the throne is eternal, self-sustaining, a miracle of faith made manifest. But I have seen the truth. Every day, we crawl through access tunnels too narrow for a man to stand. We replace fuses that should never blow. We recalibrate systems that drift out of alignment for no reason the Mechanicus will admit. We patch leaks in conduits that were never supposed to leak. We whisper prayers to panels that no longer respond to logic, only desperation. The throne is dying. It has been dying since before I was born, and we are the ones holding it together with wire and faith and lies. It started 3 months ago. A flicker, just one. A single lumen, globe in the northern gallery went dark. It had burned for 10,000 years, and then it didn't. The tech priest said it was nothing. A minor failure. Acceptable variance. They replaced it within the hour and logged the incident in triplicate, as is proper. But I saw their faces. I saw the way their mechadendrites twitched. The way their optics dimmed just slightly, as if even their machine souls were afraid. 2 weeks later, another globe failed. Then another. Then 6 at once. We stopped replacing them. There weren't enough left. The sound changed first. That rhythm, the Emperor's heartbeat, it was constant, unshakable. A metronome carved into reality itself. But one morning, as I knelt beside Conduit 8 Tertius, tightening a seal that had loosened overnight, I felt it. A pause, not long, maybe half a second, maybe less. But it was there. I looked up. Across the chamber, I saw Adept 49 Theta. She was frozen, her servo wrench still raised, her eyes wide behind her rebrether. She had felt it too. We said nothing. We finished our work, we logged nothing. But we both knew. The custodians do not speak. They stand at the perimeter of the throne room, golden and silent, their guardian spears crossed before them like the bars of a cage. I have worked here for 11 years and I have never heard one of them make a sound. But that day one of them moved. Just a shift. A single step backward. His head turned ever so slightly toward the throne, and then he was still again. I have never been so terrified in my life. The tech priests began their rituals the next day. They came in processions, dozens of them, their red robes trailing behind them like bloodstains. They carried censers that leaked sacred oils. They chanted in binaric cant. their voices overlapping into a mechanical hymn that made my teeth ache. They laid hands upon the throne's outer shell and wept coolant from their optical implants. It did nothing. The rhythm slowed again, and again. By the third day, even the priests could feel it. The ones who had never been inside the sanctum, the ones who only came to pray and offer incense and prostrate themselves before the distant golden glow. They felt the heartbeat skip, felt the air grow colder, felt the throne shudder, and they prayed louder. I stopped sleeping, not because I didn't want to, because I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes I felt it, that pause, that silence where the rhythm should be. It was like standing on the edge of a cliff in the dark, knowing that one more step would send you into the void, but unable to see where the edge was. I was not alone. The other adepts moved like ghosts, hollow-eyed, silent. We performed our duties without speaking, without meeting each other's gaze, because to acknowledge what was happening would make it real. And none of us were ready for it to be real. The system failures began to cascade, coolant lines ruptured, power relays overloaded, stabilizers that had functioned for millennia simply stopped. We patched what we could, we rerouted, we prayed, we lied to ourselves. But the throne kept failing, and the Emperor's heartbeat kept slowing. On the seventh day, the tech priests stopped chanting. They stood in silence, their mechadendrites drooping, their optics dim. One of them, a Magos I had seen perform miracles of engineering, knelt before the throne and removed his mask. I had never seen a tech priest's face before. It was old, so old, scarred and stitched and held together with staples and faith. Tears ran down his cheeks, real tears, not coolant, and his voice, when he spoke, was barely a whisper. Omnisia, forgive us. We do not know what to do. That night I returned to my cell and sat in the dark. I thought about the pilgrims, the billions who came to Terra every year, who wept at the gates, who believed with every fiber of their being that the Emperor was eternal, that he would never die, that the Imperium would last forever. I thought about the priests, the lords, the soldiers, the worlds beyond counting, all of them held together by a single thread of faith, and I realized the truth. The Emperor was never meant to die, because if he did, if that heartbeat stopped, everything would stop with him. The light, the faith, the lie, everything. I don't know when I started crying, but when I did, I couldn't stop, because I knew that no prayer, no ritual, no miracle was going to save him. The golden throne was failing, and there was nothing we could do to stop it. The next morning, I returned to the sanctum. The rhythm was slower still, and in the silence between each beat, I could hear something else. A sound like breath, like a sigh, like a dying god finally letting go. The Astronomican died slowly. That's what no one tells you. They speak of it as if it were a light switch, on then off. But it wasn't like that. It was a slow bleed, a dimming, a star going cold 1 degree at a time, so gradually that you didn't notice until you were already freezing. I was still in the sanctum when the first reports came in. Astropaths were screaming. I didn't understand at first. Astropaths always screamed. That was the price of their gift. To hear the Emperor's voice through the warp, to guide ships across the void, they had to endure a kind of suffering the rest of us could never comprehend. Their minds were burned clean in the soul, binding, their eyes seared away, and what remained was raw and open and constantly in agony. But this was different. This wasn't the scream of pain, this was the scream of absence. The first one died in the Eastern Tower. I heard about it from one of the scribes, an old man with ink-stained fingers who had worked in the administratum for 60 years and had never once left Terra. He told me in a whisper, as if speaking too loudly would make it more real. She burned, he said, from the inside. Not warp fire, not heresy, just burned, like a candle with no wick left. I asked him what she had said before she died. He looked at me with eyes that had seen too much. She said, "He's gone. The light is gone." By the second day, it wasn't just one astropath. It was dozens, then hundreds. All across Terra, they began to die. Some burned. Some collapsed, seizing, their minds shattered by the sudden void. Others simply stopped breathing, stopped moving, stopped being. And the ones who survived, they wished they hadn't. I met one of them in the lower halls, 3 days after the throne began its final decline. She was young, too young, maybe 16, maybe less. Her robes were scorched at the edges, and her face, eyeless, as all astropaths are, was streaked with tears and something darker, blood maybe, or warp residue. I couldn't tell. She was sitting against a wall, knees drawn to her chest, rocking back and forth. I should have kept walking. That's what you do in the administratum. You don't ask questions. You don't involve yourself. You survive by being invisible. But I stopped. Are you hurt? I asked. She didn't answer at first. Just kept rocking. Then, in a voice so small I almost didn't hear it, I can't feel him anymore. I didn't know what to say. I've felt him every day since the binding. She continued. Every day. His light. His voice. It was always there, even when it hurt. Even when it felt like my skull was splitting open. It was there. She stopped rocking. And now it's not. I left her there. I don't know what happened to her. I tell myself she found help. That someone took her to a medica. That she survived. But I know better. Terror doesn't care about survival. It only cares about function. And a broken astropath has no function. The news spread like poison. You could feel it moving through the hive cities, through the pilgrimage districts, through the endless corridors of the administratum. Whispers at first, then murmurs, then shouting. The Astronomican is failing. The Emperor is dying. The light is going out. The priests tried to stop it. They declared it heresy. They ordered silence. They burned the ones who spoke too loudly. But you can't burn the truth. I saw my first riot on the 5th day. I was passing through the Pilgrims' Plaza, a massive open square where millions gather to pray toward the distant glow of the palace. Normally, it is a place of reverence, silence, devotion. That day, it was chaos. Thousands of pilgrims packed shoulder to shoulder, screaming. Some were praying. Some were weeping. Some were tearing at their own flesh, as if pain could bring back the light they had lost. And then someone threw a stone. It hit a priest, a young man in white robes holding a candle, trying desperately to calm the crowd. The stone struck him in the temple. He fell, and the crowd surged forward. I ran. I didn't look back. I didn't stop. I just ran, pushing through the press of bodies, the smell of sweat and incense and something sharper, fear, maybe, or madness, filling my lungs. Behind me, I heard the screams change. From desperation to rage, from prayer to violence. The Arbits came an hour later. I watched from a high window as they marched into the plaza in black columns, shields raised, shock malls crackling with voltage. They did not speak, they did not warn, they just beat the crowd into submission. Bodies fell, blood pooled between the cobblestones, and still the pilgrims came wave after wave, as if they had forgotten how to stop. The Arbits didn't stop either. By nightfall, the plaza was empty. By morning, the bodies were gone. No one spoke of it. No record was made. It was as if it had never happened, but I knew, and so did everyone else. The ecclesiarchy tried to hold it together. They issued proclamations. They held services that lasted for days, priests chanting until their throats bled, congregations kneeling until their knees shattered. They told the faithful that the Emperor was testing them, that this was a trial, that faith would see them through. But the Astronomican kept dimming. And faith, I learned, is a fragile thing. I saw it break in a confessor. He was an old man, ancient really, his back bent from a lifetime of kneeling, his hands gnarled and scarred from decades of penance. He had served the ecclesiarchy for 80 years. He had converted worlds. He had burned heretics. He had brought billions into the Emperor's light. And now he stood in the middle of a chapel, surrounded by statues of saints, candles burning low around him, and he wept. I don't feel him, he said, his voice breaking. I don't feel him anymore. A younger priest tried to comfort him, tried to tell him it was only doubt, only weakness. The old man shook his head. No, he whispered. It's not doubt, it's truth. He looked up at the statue of the Emperor, golden, radiant, eternal. He's dying, the old man said, and we were never enough to save him. The darkness came next. Not metaphorical darkness, real darkness. The stars began to vanish. I saw it myself, standing on a balcony high in the palace, looking out over the endless sprawl of Terra's hive cities. The sky above was always clouded. Millennia of pollution and industry had seen to that. But on clear nights, you could still see the faint glow of distant stars. That night there was nothing, just black. A void so complete it felt like the universe itself had closed its eyes. And in that void, I felt something watching. The Vox networks collapsed within days. Ships stopped arriving. Astropathic chars went silent. Messages that should have taken hours to transmit simply vanished. Terra was alone, and Terra was terrified. I returned to my hab cell one night to find my neighbor hanging from the ceiling. He had used a power cable. His face was blue. His eyes were open. On the wall, written in something dark, were 3 words. The light is gone. I didn't report it. What was the point? Half the cells in my block were empty already. People had fled, or died, or simply given up. I sat on my cot and stared at the ceiling and wondered how long I had left. Not long, I thought. not long at all. Because the truth was spreading faster than any fire. The Emperor was dying, the Astronomican was failing, and the Imperium, the vast, endless, eternal Imperium, was built on a foundation of faith, and faith was crumbling. I thought about the pilgrims, the billions who had given everything to reach Terra, who had sold their lives, their families, their futures, just for the chance to kneel before the golden throne and feel his light. What would they do now? What would any of us do? The answer came sooner than I expected. Nothing. We would do nothing. Because without him, there was nothing left to do. The Imperium was never built to survive without its god. And now, we were about to find out what happened when a god finally let go. They burned the first tech, priest in the cathedral of the Savior incarnate. I wasn't there when it happened, but I heard the screams. Everyone heard the screams. It started as an argument. That's what they told me later. A theological debate between a cardinal of the ecclesiarchy and a magos of the Adeptus Mechanicus. They were both standing before the same altar, both claiming to speak for the emperor, both offering solutions to a problem neither of them could solve. The magos said the emperor's body could be repaired, that the golden throne was a machine and machines could be fixed. That faith was irrelevant. That function was all that mattered. The cardinal called it blasphemy. The magos called it logic, and then the cardinal set him on fire. I found out about it from a servitor. That should tell you everything about how far things had fallen. Servitors don't speak. They don't think. They're lobotomized slaves, their minds scooped out and replaced with simple command protocols. They exist to sweep, to carry, to obey. But this one looked at me, and it whispered, in a voice that sounded almost human, "They are burning the priests of the machine." Then it went back to mopping the floor. The schism spread like a virus. Within hours, the Mechanicus had withdrawn from the palace. They sealed the forges. They locked the manufactorums. They declared the ecclesiarchy to be in violation of the Treaty of Mars and threatened excommunication from the Omnissiah's grace. The ecclesiarchy responded by declaring the Mechanicus heretical, and Terra, already teetering on the edge of madness, tipped over. I saw the first battle in the Factorum district. I had gone there looking for supplies, coolant for the throne, though by then I think we all knew it didn't matter. The throne was beyond saving. But I went anyway, because going meant I didn't have to think about what came next. The streets were full of smoke. At first I thought it was just the factorums, belching exhaust as they always did. But as I got closer, I realized it wasn't exhaust, it was burning flesh. The Mechanicus had fortified the main gates. Servitors stood in rows, their arms replaced with industrial welders and cutting tools. Behind them, towering war machines. Castellan robots, hulking and slow, stood like iron gods. And charging toward them, screaming hymns and prayers, were the faithful, priests, pilgrims, arbits, civilians, thousands of them, armed with whatever they could find. Hammers, pipes, frag grenades blessed by confessors who had never held a weapon in their lives. They threw themselves at the gates like waves against a cliff, and the Mechanicus cut them down without hesitation. I hid in an alley and watched. I watched a priest, robes burning, face twisted in devotion, charge a Castellan with nothing but a candle in his hand. He screamed something about the Emperor's light, about faith triumphing over steel. The Castellan crushed him underfoot without slowing. I watched a pilgrim woman drag herself forward, both legs sheared off by a power claw, still trying to reach the gates, still praying. A servitor stepped over her and kept walking. The Mechanicus didn't care. That was the worst part. They weren't angry, they weren't cruel, they were efficient. To them, this wasn't a holy war, it was pest control. I ran before the artillery started. I heard it though, felt it. The ground shook as the Mechanicus unleashed their heavy guns, turning the faithful into red mist and scattered bone. And above it all, I could hear the hymns, still singing, still praying, even as they died. The ecclesiarchy retaliated that night. They didn't have war machines, they didn't have servitors, but they had numbers, and they had fury. I watched from a window as mobs stormed the Mechanicus enclaves. They tore down statues of the Omnissiah. They smashed data looms. They dragged tech priests into the streets and beat them until their augmetics sparked and their skulls cracked open. And the Mechanicus, for all their logic and precision, had no answer for faith turned feral. I saw a magos die in front of me. He was old, ancient maybe, more machine than man, his body a patchwork of brass and steel and blinking optics. He stumbled out of a side door, one arm sparking, his robes torn. The mob found him immediately. They didn't kill him quickly. They pulled him apart, piece by piece, mechadendrite by mechadendrite, and as they did, he kept speaking not prayers, not curses, just binary, ones and zeros, a language no one in the mob understood. And when they finally crushed his skull, the binary stopped, but I swear I heard it echo. The palace became a battlefield. Not officially, no one declared war, no orders were given, but it didn't matter. Faith and logic had finally collided, and there was no room left for compromise. I tried to stay out of it. I returned to the sanctum, to the throne, thinking that maybe there I could find some kind of shelter, some kind of meaning, but the sanctum was empty. The other adepts were gone. The tech priests had abandoned their posts. Even the custodians had left, called away, I assumed, to defend the palace from itself. It was just me. And the throne. I stood before it and felt nothing, no awe, no reverence, no faith, just exhaustion. The throne was still running. Barely. The lights flickered. The conduits hissed. The rhythm, the Emperor's heartbeat, was so faint now that I had to press my hand to the floor just to feel it. And I realized something. The Mechanicus was right. The throne was a machine. It had always been a machine. Not a miracle. Not a gift from the divine. Just a machine. A very old, very complicated machine, built by hands and minds and desperation. And like all machines, it could break. But the ecclesiarchy was right too. Because faith wasn't about machines. It was about meaning. And for 10,000 years, the Emperor had been the meaning that held the Imperium together. Not because he was a god, but because we needed him to be. And now that need was tearing us apart. I sat on the floor and laughed. It wasn't a happy laugh. It was the kind of laugh that comes when you realize the joke was on you all along. The Emperor's immortality was never divine. It was maintenance, flesh and wire, bone and circuitry, blood and coolant. And we had spent 10,000 years pretending otherwise. I don't know how long I sat there, hours maybe, days. Time didn't mean much anymore. When I finally left the sanctum, the palace was burning. Not everywhere, just in patches, small fires that no one bothered to put out, smoke drifting through corridors lined with gold. I passed a chapel where priests knelt before a shattered statue, still praying. I passed a workshop where a lone tech priest worked in silence, repairing a servitor that would never wake. I passed bodies, so many bodies, and I realized the truth. The schism wasn't about faith versus logic. It was about fear. Fear of the truth we had always known but never spoken. The Emperor was never meant to die. Because if he did, we had to face what we really were. Not the chosen, not the faithful, not the Imperium eternal, just mortals, clinging to a dying star, pretending it would never go out. And now was nothing left to stop it. The Emperor died at dawn. I felt it before I knew it, a silence, so absolute it didn't feel like absence. It felt like presence, like the entire universe had taken a breath and held it. I was in the lower archives when it happened, searching for something I don't even remember anymore. Food, maybe water, a reason to keep moving. The lumen globes flickered, then went out, all of them, every light in the archive, every glow strip, every tiny pinprick of illumination that had burned for 10,000 years, gone. And in the darkness I heard the sound, not a sound, a feeling, the Emperor's heartbeat, one final pulse, and then nothing. I ran, I don't know why. There was nowhere to go. Nothing to do, but I ran anyway, stumbling through the black, hands scraping against walls I couldn't see, breath tearing through my lungs. I ran until I reached the sanctum. The doors were open. I had never seen them open before. Not once in 11 years. They were sealed, sacred, guarded by custodians who would kill you for even looking at them wrong. But now they hung crooked on their hinges, one of them half melted, glowing faintly at the edges. And beyond them light, not the light I expected. Not the golden glow of the throne, not the soft radiance of the Emperor's grace. This was something else, cold, blue-white, flickering like a dying star, and it was screaming. I stepped inside. The throne was shattered, not destroyed, not broken, shattered, as if some immense force had torn through it from the inside, splitting metal and flesh and reality itself. Conduits hung like entrails. Coolant pooled on the floor, hissing where it touched the air. Sparks rained from severed cables, and at the center of it all, nothing. The Emperor was gone, not dead, not dust, just gone. The throne was empty, and in the space where he had been there was a wound. I can't describe it properly. Words aren't enough, but I'll try. It was a hole, not in the throne, not in the room, in everything. A tear in the fabric of the world, edges flickering with colors that shouldn't exist, and through that tear I could see something moving, shapes, vast and distant and wrong, and I could hear them. whispering. I should have run. I should have looked away. But I couldn't, because the whispers weren't random, they were words, and I understood them. He is not gone. He is everywhere. He is us. I fell to my knees. I don't know if it was devotion or terror or something in between, but as I knelt there staring into that wound, I felt it. The Emperor, not as he had been, not as the golden god on the throne, silent and still and slowly dying, but as something new, something vast, something that had stopped fighting the warp and become it. The Astronomican flared. One final time. It wasn't light, it was fire. A wave of searing, blinding radiance that tore across the galaxy, burning through the warp, through real space, through the minds of every living thing that had ever felt his presence. Astropaths screamed. Navigators went blind. Psychers combusted where they stood, their bodies unable to contain the torrent of power flooding through them. And in that moment, just one moment, I saw him, not a man, not a corpse, not a god, a will, endless, merciless, woven through the warp itself, threads of gold and fury and something darker, something that had always been there, hidden beneath the light. The Emperor had not died, he had ascended. Or descended. I'm not sure there's a difference anymore. The light faded, the whispers stopped, and I was alone in the dark. I don't know how long I stayed there. Long enough for the emergency lumens to flicker on, long enough for the sound of distant shouting to reach me, long enough to realize that I was still alive, and that somehow was the worst part. I left the sanctum. The palace was in chaos. Fires burned unchecked, bodies littered the halls, the faithful and the faithless, the Mechanicus and the ecclesiarchy, all of them scattered like broken dolls. But no one was fighting anymore. They were just staring at the sky. I followed their gaze. Terra's sky was always grey, smog and ash and the weight of 10,000 years of industry. But now it was different. It was moving, shapes in the clouds, shadows that flickered and twisted and formed patterns I almost recognized. Faces maybe, or hands, or something that had never had a shape until now. And through it all, a voice, not heard, felt, deep in the bones, in the blood, in the soul. I am with you, I am within you, I am eternal. Some people wept, some fell to their knees, some just stood there, mouths open, eyes wide, and some screamed, because they understood what I understood. The Emperor was not dead, but he was not alive either. He had become something else, something that humanity had no name for. Something woven into the warp, into the Astronomican, into every prayer ever spoken in his name. Humanity had not lost its god, it had become his echo. I walked through the streets of terror and saw it everywhere. Priests who no longer prayed, but whispered to shadows. Pilgrims who carved symbols into their flesh, symbols they had never learned. Tech priests who knelt before dead machines and heard them hum. The Emperor's will was no longer a distant light, it was here in us, of us, and we had no choice but to follow it. I returned to my hab cell one last time. It was empty, dark, the same as it had always been, but on the wall, written in something glowing faintly, gold maybe, or something pretending to be gold, were 3 words, "You are mine." I sat on my cot and stared at those words for a long time, and then I smiled, not because I was happy, but because I finally understood. The Emperor was never meant to die, because gods don't die, they transform, they become what their believers need them to be, and humanity needed him to be eternal, so he was. But eternity has a price, and we will pay it, forever, because the Emperor is not gone. He is the warp, he is the darkness, he is the whisper in the void, and the scream in the stars, and we, every one of us, are his instruments now, endless, desperate, and damned. The Astronomican didn't fade, it erupted. I was still in the lower archives when it happened, stumbling through corridors I no longer recognized, following instincts I didn't trust, searching for something, anything, that made sense. And then the world split open. It wasn't light. Light is warm, light is comfort, light guides you home. This was violence, a wave of searing, boiling radiance that didn't just fill the room, it became the room. The walls vanished, the floor dissolved. Everything turned white, then gold, then something beyond color, something that burned through my retinas and kept going, carving itself into the back of my skull. I screamed. I think I screamed. I couldn't hear myself over the roar. It lasted a heartbeat, maybe less, but in that heartbeat I saw everything. Not with my eyes. My eyes were useless, burned blind by the first instant of the flare. But I saw terror. Every hive, every spire, every crawling mass of humanity pressed shoulder to shoulder in corridors that had never seen sunlight. I saw them all stop, all at once, Billions of people frozen mid-step, mid-breath, mid-prayer, and then I saw them burn, not with fire, with presence. The light didn't consume them, it filled them, poured into their mouths, their eyes, their very souls, until there was no room left for anything else. I saw pilgrims in the plaza collapse, their bodies glowing from within, skin splitting like overripe fruit as something radiant clawed its way out. I saw priests in their chapels lifted off the ground, arms spread wide, faces twisted in ecstasy or agony. I couldn't tell which. I saw an entire congregation fuse together, their flesh melting and merging into a single writhing mass that screamed with 1,000 voices and wept molten gold. And I saw the psychers. They died by the millions, all across Terra, all across the galaxy. Every astropath, every sanctioned psyker, every poor soul born with the curse of warp sight. They ignited, not from the inside, not from the outside, from everywhere. I watched one of them die just meters away from me. A woman, young. Her robes marked her as a junior astropath, still in training, probably, still learning how to navigate the warp without losing her mind. She was reaching for me when it happened. Her eyes, gone of course, burned away in the soul binding, suddenly blazed with light, real light, not fire, not warp flame, pure, golden radiance. She opened her mouth to scream, but no sound came out, only light. It poured from her throat, from her empty sockets, from the pores of her skin. Her body began to rise, lifted by forces I couldn't see, couldn't comprehend. Her fingers stretched toward me, trembling, pleading, and then she shattered, not into pieces, into particles, a billion motes of golden dust that hung in the air for just a moment before dissolving into nothing. I felt her pass through me as she vanished, and in that moment, I felt what she felt. Joy. Pure, overwhelming, unbearable joy. The kind that breaks you, that tears you apart because your body was never meant to hold that much feeling. She had seen him, not as he was, as he is, and it had killed her. The light faded, slowly, reluctantly, like a tide being pulled back by forces too vast to resist, and when it was gone I could see again. I wish I couldn't. The archives were gone, not destroyed, just gone. The walls had been scarred away, the shelves, the scrolls, the data slates, everything. Replaced by smooth, glassy stone that reflected nothing, and scattered across that stone, bodies, hundreds of them, thousands maybe, all psychers. I could tell by the robes, by the markings, by the way their flesh had been burned clean, leaving only husks that looked almost peaceful, almost. I stood among them and tried to remember how to breathe. The silence was worse than the light. It wasn't the absence of sound. It was the absence of everything. No hum of machinery, no distant voices, no heartbeat from the throne, just nothing. As if the universe itself had stopped to catch its breath. I walked. I don't know where, I don't know why, but I walked through halls that no longer made sense, past rooms that opened into other rooms that shouldn't exist, following corridors that bent in ways that hurt to look at. And everywhere I went, I found them. The dead, not just psychers. Everyone, priests who had died mid-prayer, hands still clasped, mouths still open, servitors frozen in place, their mechanical limbs locked, their optical sensors dark, pilgrims who had fallen to their knees and never risen, and on their faces, all of them, the same expression, peace. I wanted to scream at them, to shake them, to demand answers. What did you see? What was it like? Why didn't I die too? But they couldn't answer, and I think that was the point. I found the chapel by accident. Or maybe it found me, I don't know anymore. Terra had stopped obeying the laws of space and time. Rooms appeared where they shouldn't, doors led to places they hadn't before. The palace was changing, the chapel was small, unremarkable. The kind of place where low-level clerks might come to pray before their shift, offering a quick devotion before returning to their desks. But now, it was full of bodies, not dead, not alive, something in between. They were kneeling, dozens of them. Men and women in ragged robes, their faces lifted toward the ceiling, their hands pressed together in prayer, and they were glowing, faintly, a soft, golden light that pulsed in rhythm with something I couldn't hear. I stepped closer. One of them turned to look at me. Her eyes were gone, burned away, but I could still feel her gaze. "He is here," she whispered. Her voice was dry, cracked, like she hadn't spoken in years. "He is everywhere." I wanted to run, I couldn't move. "We saw him," another voice said. A man this time. His face was scarred, half his skull replaced with crude augmetics. When the light came, not as he was, the woman continued. As he became greater, the man said. Terrible, the woman said. Beautiful. They spoke in unison now, all of them, Dozens of voices layered over each other, harmonizing in a way that made my teeth ache. He is not dead, he is free. Free from flesh. Free from the throne, free to be what he always was. A god. A weapon. A hunger. I stumbled backward, the glow brightened, and I heard it, not with my ears, with something deeper, a voice vast, endless, woven through the fabric of the universe itself, and it spoke one word, mine. I ran until my lungs burned, until my legs gave out, until I collapsed in a corridor I didn't recognize and lay there gasping, staring at a ceiling that seemed too far away. And I realized the truth. The Emperor had not died. He had ascended, or been devoured, or become something so vast, so incomprehensible, that the difference no longer mattered. The Astronomican had not failed. It had erupted, torn itself apart in a final, desperate attempt to hold him, to keep him bound to flesh and bone and reality. But it couldn't. Nothing could. And now he was free. Free to spread, to consume, to become the very thing he had fought against for 10,000 years. The warp, the madness, the truth humanity had always feared. I lay there in the dark and laughed, because we had prayed for this. For 10,000 years we had prayed for him to save us, and he had, by devouring us. When I finally stood, the corridor was empty, but I could still feel them watching, the dead, the glowing, the ones who had seen the light and survived just long enough to become its instruments. And I knew that this was only the beginning. The light had not faded. It had just learned to hide, and when it returned, when it truly returned, there would be nothing left of us but echoes, golden, terrible, endless. A first-person narration, the 2000's words. The Imperium didn't collapse all at once. It fractured, like glass struck by a hammer, thousands of pieces, each one sharp, each one reflecting a different truth, and every truth claimed to be his. I learned this on the Vox networks, the ones that still functioned. Static-filled transmissions from worlds I'd never heard of, voices desperate and furious and certain, all speaking at once. The Emperor has returned to us. He walks among the faithful on Sanctus Prime. Lees, the true Messiah has risen on Ophelia V. We have seen his light. Heretics. The Emperor speaks only through his chosen prophet, Cardinal Vashinov. The transmission cut off, replaced by screaming, then silence. It was the same everywhere, every world, every hive, every ship drifting in the void, without the Astronomican to guide them, without the Emperor's voice to unite them. They did what humanity always does. They created their own gods. The first one I heard about was on a mining colony called Rust's End. A child, they said, born on the same day the throne went silent. The midwife swore the infant had golden eyes, that it spoke in High Gothic before it could walk, that it performed miracles, healing the sick, casting out demons, turning water into something the colonists called holy ichor. Within a week, 10,000 pilgrims had descended on that colony. Within a month, it was a war zone, because another faction claimed the child was a fake, that the true Messiah had appeared on a neighboring moon, and they had proof, witnesses, miracles of their own. By the time the Arbites arrived to restore order, both factions had slaughtered each other down to the last man. The child was never found, but it didn't matter, because by then, there were 100 more just like it. I saw one of them myself. I had left Terra. I don't remember how. A transport, maybe, or a pilgrim barge. Time had stopped making sense. Days bled into weeks, faces blurred together. All I knew was that I had to leave, had to get away from the palace, from the throne, from the glowing figures who whispered in languages I almost understood. I ended up on a forge world called Sable's Reach. It was chaos. The Mechanicus had barricaded themselves inside the central manufactorum, refusing to open the gates. Outside, thousands of workers, menials, servitors who had somehow regained fragments of their minds, even a few rogue tech priests, chanted and screamed and hurled themselves at the walls, and leading them, a man in red robes. He called himself the Omniscia Reborn. I watched from a distance as he stood atop a rusted transport, arms raised, voice booming over the crowd. "The Emperor has shed his flesh!" he roared. "He has become one with the machine, and through me, through us, he will rise again." The crowd roared back. A sound like grinding gears and human agony merged into one. "We do not need the false priests of Mars. We do not need the corrupt lords of Terra. We have each other! We have him." He pointed at the manufactorum. "And we will tear down their walls and rebuild this world in his image." They charged. I didn't stay to see what happened, but I heard the explosions, felt the ground shake, saw the smoke rising as I boarded the next transport off-world, and I knew this was happening everywhere. On every world, someone had seen the light. Someone had heard the voice. Someone had been touched by the Emperor's final flare and emerged changed, or claimed they had. It didn't matter if they were lying, it didn't matter if they were mad, because the faithful needed to believe, needed a messiah, a prophet, a sign that the Emperor had not abandoned them, and so they created one, and then they went to war over it. I saw it happen on a feudal world called Grey's March. 2 warlords each claiming to carry the Emperor's blessing, each gathering armies of peasants and knights and sending them to die in his name. I watched from orbit as they clashed on a battlefield of ash and bone. Thousands dead in the first hour, tens of thousands by nightfall, and above it all, both sides screaming the same prayer. For the Emperor, I saw it on a hive world called Vorten's Gate, where 3 rival cults had carved the city into blood-soaked districts. Each one claimed their leader was the reincarnation of the Emperor himself. Each one burned the other's temples and called it holy work. I saw children, marching with stub guns and improvised blades, chanting hymns as they killed each other in narrow alleys choked with corpses. And I saw it on a cardinal world called Benediction. The ecclesiarchy had splintered. Every cardinal, every bishop, every preacher with even a shred of authority claimed to know the Emperor's true will. They held councils, debates, trials of faith, and when words failed, they turned to fire. I stood in the ruins of the Grand Basilica and watched priests burn each other alive. They didn't use flamers, they didn't use promethium, they used faith. They stood in circles, chanting, praying, pouring every ounce of their belief into the air until it ignited, until their enemies began to smolder and scream and collapse into ash. And the ones who survived called it a miracle. I wanted to scream at them, this is not what he wanted. This is not unity, this is madness, but I didn't. Because deep down I knew the truth. The Emperor had never wanted unity, he had wanted control. And now that control was gone, and without it we were doing what we had always done, tearing each other apart in his name. The Adeptus custodes did nothing. That was the strangest part. They should have intervened, should have crushed the cults, executed the false prophets, restored order through sheer, brutal efficiency. But they didn't, they vanished. I heard rumors, whispers on half-broken Vox channels, that the custodes had sealed themselves inside the palace, that they stood guard over the silent throne, unmoving, waiting for orders that would never come, that they had abandoned the Imperium to its fate. I didn't believe it at first, but then I tried to contact them. I used every channel I could find, every encrypted frequency, every backdoor protocol I'd learned in my years as an adept. Nothing, just silence, and I realized they were gone, not dead, not destroyed, just absent. The Emperor's finest warriors, the ones who had stood vigil for 10,000 years, had finally given up, and without them, we were alone. I drifted for months after that, world to world, ship to ship, following refugees, pilgrims, anyone who still had somewhere to go. And everywhere I went I saw the same thing, cults, prophets, holy wars. The Imperium hadn't died, it had metastasized, become 1,000 different cancers, each one claiming to be the cure. And the worst part, they were all right, because the Emperor was with them. I could feel it, in every sermon, every miracle, every impossible victory. He was there, not as a man, not as a god, but as an idea, a belief so strong, so desperate, that it had become real. The warp doesn't care about truth, it cares about faith, and humanity's faith in the Emperor had become so vast, so all-consuming, that it had torn through the veil and made him real in a way he never was before. Every prophet who claimed to speak for him did. Every miracle performed in his name was real. Every holy war fought over his corpse was justified. Because he was no longer one man, he was all of us, and we were tearing ourselves apart to prove it. I watched a pilgrim ship drift past me one day, its hull cracked, its engines dead. Through the viewports I could see them. Thousands of pilgrims kneeling in the dark, praying to a god who was no longer there, or maybe he was. I couldn't tell anymore. I closed my eyes and whispered a prayer of my own, not for salvation, not for guidance, just for it to end. But I knew it wouldn't, because the Emperor had given us exactly what we asked for: immortality, divinity, eternity, and we would spend the rest of time killing each other over it. I returned to Terra. I don't know why. Maybe because it was the only place left that made sense. The only place that still felt like the center of something, even if that something was dying. Or maybe because I had nowhere else to go. The palace was empty, not abandoned, empty. The difference is important. Abandoned places still have echoes. You can feel the weight of the people who once lived there, worked there, died there. But the palace felt like a tomb that had never been occupied, cold, vast, silent. I walked through halls I had known for years and didn't recognize them anymore. The walls had changed. The murals were different, depicting scenes I had never seen, saints I had never heard of. Some of the corridors led to rooms that shouldn't exist. Others ended in blank walls where doors used to be. The palace was alive, or dying, I couldn't tell which. I descended, down into the depths where even adepts rarely went, past the archives, past the maintenance tunnels, past the sealed vaults where forbidden things slept in stasis. I descended until the air grew cold and thin, until the walls turned from gold to black stone, until the only sound was my own breathing and the distant drip of water from somewhere far above. And then I found them. The custodes, they stood in perfect formation. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. It was impossible to count in the dark. Their golden armor reflected nothing. No light, no heat, just absence. And they were perfectly still. I approached slowly, my footsteps echoing in the vast chamber. None of them moved. I stopped a few meters away and stared. They were facing the center of the chamber where the throne once stood. But the throne was gone. Removed maybe. Or dissolved. All that remained was a circular dais, empty and dark, and the custodes stood before it unmoving like statues carved from despair. I whispered, "Why are you still here?" No answer. I took a step closer. "He's gone. You know that, don't you?" Nothing. I felt anger rising in my chest, hot and sudden and irrational. "You were supposed to protect him. You were supposed to save us. And now you just stand there." My voice cracked. "What are you waiting for?" One of them moved. It was so slight I almost missed it. A shift in posture, a tilt of the head, the faintest glimmer of light reflecting off a faceplate, and then he spoke. His voice was deep, hollow, like it was coming from the bottom of a well. "We wait." That was all, 2 words, and then he was still again. I stared at him, at them, at the silent army of the Emperor's finest warriors, standing vigil over nothing. "Wait for what?" I asked. No answer. "He's not coming back, you know that. He's gone." Silence. I felt tears running down my face. I didn't bother wiping them away. "Why won't you do something? Anything?" Another voice, different custodian, same hollow tone. "Our duty is to guard him. He's dead," I said. "He is beyond death." "Then what is he?" Silence. I sank to my knees. "I don't understand," I whispered. "I don't understand any of this." The first custodian spoke again. "You were not meant to." I looked up at him, at the faceless golden mask that revealed nothing. Then what was I meant to do? Survive. The word hung in the air like a blade. I stood slowly, legs trembling. "That's it. That's all you have to say." No answer. I laughed. It came out bitter and broken. "You're gods among men, the Emperor's chosen, and all you can do is stand there and tell me to survive." The custodian didn't move, but I felt something shift in the air, something cold and vast and ancient. "We are not gods," he said quietly. "We are weapons, and a weapon without a wielder has no purpose." I wanted to scream at him, to rage, to demand that he do something. But I couldn't, because he was right. The custodes were not leaders. They were not saviors. They were tools, forged for one purpose and one purpose alone: to protect the Emperor. And now that he was gone, truly gone, they had nothing left. I looked around the chamber, at the hundreds of golden figures standing in perfect silence. "How long will you wait?" I asked. "As long as necessary. And if he never returns, then we will stand here until the stars go cold." I believed him. There was nothing more to say. But as I reached the entrance, I heard one final whisper, so faint I almost missed it. "He is not gone." I froze, turned back. The custodians hadn't moved, but I heard it again, louder this time, not from one voice but from all of them. "He is not gone. He watches, he waits, he remembers." And then, in perfect unison, "He hungers." I ran up through the passages, through the twisting corridors, through the empty halls that seemed to shift and breathe around me. I didn't stop until I reached the surface, until I stood beneath Terra's grey sky and gasped in air that tasted of ash and prayer. And I realized, the custodes weren't waiting for the Emperor to return. They were waiting for him to finish, because he wasn't dead. He was becoming, transforming into something so vast, so terrible, that even his own guardians could not comprehend it. And when that transformation was complete, when he finally opened his eyes, the galaxy would burn. I drifted, that's the only word for it. Not traveling, not fleeing, just drifting, through the void, through the warp, through the spaces in between where reality forgets what it is. The ship I was on, if you could call it that, was a pilgrim barge. ancient, half-broken. Its hull was patched with prayers and desperation, its engines held together by faith and nothing else. There were others aboard, pilgrims, refugees, people who had lost everything and were searching for something, anything, to believe in. But I avoided them, because I could see it in their eyes. The same thing I saw in the mirrors when I still bothered to look. Emptiness. We had no destination. The navigator was dead, burned out during the Astronomican's final flare. Without him we were blind, adrift in the warp with no light to guide us. But the ship kept moving, pulled by currents we couldn't see, guided by forces we didn't understand. And every night I dreamed. The dreams were always the same. I was standing in a vast cathedral, not made of stone or steel, but of flesh, walls that pulsed. A floor that shifted beneath my feet like a living thing, and at the center, a throne. Not the golden throne, this was something else, something older, darker. It was carved from bone, thousands of skeletons fused together, their empty sockets staring out into the void, their jaws open in silent screams, and seated upon it him, the Emperor, but not as I had ever seen him, not as the golden god of the Imperium, not as the corpse upon the throne. This was something between. His form was vast, too vast to comprehend. It filled the cathedral and spilled beyond it, bleeding into the darkness beyond the walls. His face, if it was a face, was half flesh, half light. One eye was golden, radiant, burning with the fury of a dying star. The other was black, endless, a void that swallowed everything it touched. And he was looking at me. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't think. All I could do was stare, and then he spoke, not with words, with feeling, a sensation that crawled through my mind, my bones, my very soul. And it said, "Why do you resist?" I tried to answer, tried to speak, but my voice was gone. "You are mine, all of you, every prayer, every breath, every moment of suffering, mine." I felt myself sinking, dissolving, as if my body was being pulled apart thread by thread and woven into something larger. I am not dead, I am more. I am the warp, the void, the hunger between stars. I am what you made me. And in that moment I understood. The Emperor had not died. He had not ascended. He had not been devoured by the warp. He was the warp. Every prayer spoken in his name. Every death in his service. Every ounce of faith poured into his image for 10,000 years. It had all fed him, fueled him, transformed him into something that no longer needed a body, no longer needed a throne. He was belief made manifest, and belief in the warp becomes reality. I woke screaming. The other pilgrims stared at me, some in fear, some in pity, but I didn't care, because I knew now. The Emperor's silence was not absence, it was patience. He was waiting for the Imperium to tear itself apart, waiting for every false prophet to rise and fall, waiting for the faithful to burn themselves out in his name. Because every death strengthened him, every war fed him, every prayer was another thread binding humanity to his will. He didn't need to speak. He didn't need to guide us, because we were already doing exactly what he wanted. I stumbled through the ship's corridors in a daze, past the chapels where pilgrims knelt and wept, past the cargo holds where refugees huddled in the dark, whispering stories of the Emperor's return, and I wanted to scream at them. He's not coming back. He's already here. I knew, but I didn't, because they wouldn't have believed me. Or worse, they would have. I found myself in the observation deck, a small room, barely large enough for 3 people, with a single viewport looking out into the warp. I pressed my hand against the glass and stared. The warp is not empty. Everyone knows that. It's full of nightmares, daemons, the broken remnants of souls that couldn't escape. But now I saw something else, shapes, vast and distant, moving through the madness like sharks through deep water. They were made of light, golden light, but it wasn't warm, it wasn't comforting, it was hungry. And as I watched, one of them turned and looked at me. I couldn't see its face, it didn't have one, but I felt its gaze, felt it pierce through the viewport, through the ship, through my very soul. And I heard his voice again. "You belong to me." I collapsed. When I woke, I was alone. The observation deck was empty, the viewport was dark, but I could still feel it. That presence, that gaze watching, waiting. I dragged myself to my feet and left. But no matter where I went, I couldn't escape it. Because it wasn't outside, it was inside, in me, in all of us. The Emperor had not abandoned us, he had absorbed us. And now, every thought, every prayer, every desperate plea for salvation fed the thing he had become. We were no longer his subjects, we were his sustenance. I found a scribe in one of the lower decks, an old woman with ink-stained fingers and eyes that had seen too much. She was writing. endlessly, page after page of the same words over and over. He is with us. He is within us. He is eternal. I asked her why she was doing it. She looked up at me with hollow eyes. Because he told me to. I felt a chill run down my spine. When, every night, in my dreams, she smiled. It was the saddest thing I'd ever seen. He speaks to all of us now. Don't you hear him? I did. That was the worst part. I heard him, every moment, every heartbeat, a whisper at the edge of consciousness, a presence just beyond sight, and I knew, this was the new reality. The Imperium no longer served a man upon a throne. It served a god woven through the fabric of madness itself, a god that demanded nothing, because it already had everything, our lives, our deaths, our souls, all of it his, forever. I stood at the viewport one last time and stared into the warp, and I whispered the only prayer I had left, forgive us, but there was no answer, only silence, and in that silence, I heard the truth. He would never forgive us, because there was nothing to forgive. We had created him, worshipped him, fed him with our faith until he became the very thing we feared, and now we would serve him, forever endlessly, without hope, without mercy, without end. The Emperor's silence was not absence, it was inevitability, and we, all of us, were just echoes now, echoing through the void, through the warp, forever.